Welcome everybody to the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association's Facebook page. And today we're going to be doing a live interview. It is July 17th. It is 4:03 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're watching this in live time, you will have an opportunity to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. If you are not watching in live time, you can post your questions below and we will respond to them when we see them pop up. So today we have with us Dr. Rachel Lampert of Yale and Dr. Sharlene Day of the University of Pennsylvania. And I have to stop myself there because some of you may remember her as Sharlene Day from the University of Michigan, but she has moved now.
Still carry my U of M mug with me and the legacy, but yes.
There you go.
We lived with it recently.
Yeah, she's not going to let that Michigan stuff go too soon. I understand her new office is completely smattered with it. So welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're getting people populating here. So I hope everybody's well in Connecticut, Philadelphia, and I'm here in Jersey, sweltering in the heat like you guys are. So welcome.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
Yes, thanks so much.
Okay, so we're going to give some PowerPoint presentation here in just a second. So I'm going to bring up some slides. And Dr. Day is going to, oops, let's put that back in space. Dr. Day is going to walk us through these slides. So Dr. Day, I give you the control.
Oh, so thank you all for joining us today. So today, Dr. Lampert and I are going to discuss a clinical study called LIVE-HCM. Many of you who are listening may have enrolled in this study. And so we're going to give you some updates about how the study is going. And how we need your help. So this study looks at exercise in genetic cardiovascular disease, and we call it the LIVE-HCM study. Next slide, please. So the reason that we designed the study is because there are a lot of uncertainties surrounding exercise and sports participation for patients with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And the primary concern is the possibility that these types of activities could trigger a dangerous heart arrhythmia that could cause a cardiac arrest or sudden death. And certainly there are many examples, and I'm sure that people listening have heard of examples of individuals with HCM or other cardiac conditions who have had a cardiac arrest or have died suddenly in the context of participating in a sport. These are incredibly rare events, but obviously also incredibly tragic events and ones that we all hope to prevent. And some of these deaths are due to HCM, but there are also many other causes. Although HCM has been known as one of the leading causes of sudden death, particularly in young people. And I think what we really don't know is whether playing sports increases the risk for an individual who has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or whether they might have had that event regardless of whether they were participating in sports or not. So we really are not sure whether sports participation or exercise at any level increases risk, particularly for these dangerous heart arrhythmias in patients with HCM.
Yeah, next one.
So we also know, however, that there are many benefits to being active. These range from, for children, getting better grades in school, avoiding risky behaviors. They generally, are less obese. They have, and they grow up to be adults who are, who have lower rates of obesity, diabetes, and high blood pressure. And there are a lot of benefits also to organized sports, not just regular exercise, but, qualities that are built in children early that are really life skills. So leadership, teamwork, they learn how to cope with both loss and victory. They learn how to set goals, how to focus, they learn discipline. So we understand that there are many benefits to being active and participating in organized sports as part of a team. And so the trick here is to really balance the potential risks with the known benefits of exercise. So we need more knowledge, right? We need to learn more in order to strike this balance exactly right. So we really don't know if the risks are truly higher for someone with HCM who's participating in sports or who is exercising vigorously than if they were less active or even sedentary. And so what we know is what makes the headlines, and often these are cases that make the headlines. but we don't know what doesn't. So there may be many circumstances. We all know of circumstances of patients with HCM who have died outside of the context of sports. And these are truly the vast majority of these cases are not associated with sports. But we really need to systematically study this because we know that exercise restrictions that have been historically imposed on patients with HCM can have a negative impact both on their general health as well as on their quality of life. So that was really the impetus for designing the LIVE-HCM study. And the purpose of the study is to determine how lifestyle and exercise impact the well-being, the physical and emotional well-being of people with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So from there, I will let Dr. Lampert take over.
So I'd like to start by thanking anybody who's listening who is a participant in LIVE-HCM. We have some breaking news that enrollment is now complete as of a couple of months ago, and we really had a great turnout. We have 825 people who have HCM who are actively participating in the study. Next slide.
That was 1,825, right?
Yes,
okay.
1,825, absolutely. So of the people enrolled, your 55% are male, men or boys, and 45% are women or girls. About a quarter of the participants are under 25. So here's a breakdown by age of the range. So really we had a good range of participants ranging from children 8 to 17 on up through young adults and middle-aged adults to age 60. So we had participants from 49 out of 50 states. We were disappointed we didn't get anyone from Oklahoma, but we have every other state represented participating. We have people from 7 Canadian provinces, and we also have people from Australia, New Zealand, and United Kingdom. So we really had a great distribution of people participating in the study. So of the participants, this was a study that we were really looking to enroll whole families because as with any genetic disease, this is something shared between parents and children. And we did get about 1/5 of the participants are participating with a family member. So 2 siblings, a parent and a child, or other family groups. So of the participants, 40% have a defibrillator. 15% have had a myectomy. Some of these are the same people who did have both. So most people did not have a myectomy, but we did have a handful who did. So the purpose of the study is to see how people's exercise and lifestyle affects their health and well-being. And so we enrolled people who have any level of exercise, and our materials have said whether you like to run or walk or sit and read a book. And so of the 1,800 some participants, we had about 40% of the runners, people who are exercising vigorously. We had about 40% of the moderate exercisers, the walkers, and we had about 20% of people with a more relaxed lifestyle that enjoy sitting and reading a book or doing other more relaxed things. So the enrollment for this study is just the beginning. So it was great that we've got this great enrollment. And now what we have to do is really focus on the follow-up. So the follow-up for the study involves a brief internet questionnaire every 6 months. And this gets sent to the participants as a link. And then you open the link and you get just a very brief questionnaire asking about how you've been doing since you last communicated with the study. Next. Oh, so I wanted to take a minute. As you're getting the questionnaires, sometimes you're getting phone calls, and at the end of the study, when you've completed the 3 years, you're definitely getting a phone call from one of the coordinators. So I wanted to take a minute to introduce the coordinators here at the central site, which is Yale. So from the picture, we've got Teresa, we've got Sherry in the middle, and we've got Cheryl on the other end. And we're going to meet them in person today as well. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so somebody want to kind of jump in?
Hi, everyone. I just want to take a second to thank everyone who's been responding to their surveys regularly. These are very important, and we understand that it takes a few minutes of your time, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Don't forget that at the end, with the last survey at 36 months, we do need to schedule a brief exit call with you as well for that one. Thanks.
Thanks, Teresa.
Hello. If you haven't completed a survey, if you missed 1 or 2, it's okay. We can get you back on track very easily. When you receive your next survey, we just need you to answer the medical and activity questions for the time period since you last completed your survey. So we can get you back on track and you can still participate in the study.
Next slide. Okay.
Hey everybody, this is Sherry. Just a quick note about the Fitbits. We know that for a variety of reasons, sometimes lost, broken, or stolen, the Fitbits don't always make it the full 3 years of participation. So we just want to remind you that the Fitbits give us very helpful information, but the questionnaires give us even more important information. So if you no longer have a fully functional Fitbit for any reason, please just focus on the activity portions of your questionnaires and we'll be able to get the information we need.
Thank you. Thanks. So here's what's still needed. As we said, we have the brief internet questionnaires go out every 6 months. For the adult participants, it goes straight to you. For children, the questionnaires go to the parents. They just take a few minutes to fill out. It's just a couple of questions about how things are going with your health and a few questions about your activities. And this way we can collect the information we need to make the study a success. So again, together we can make the study a success and we can learn more about lifestyle and exercise and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So thanks again to everyone who is participating and is participating, and thanks for being on the broadcast today.
Well, that's fantastic. We thank you so much. Let me just get rid of this so we can get back to bigger sizes here. I think what you guys have laid out here is amazing. We have, that's almost 2,000 people have signed up, and I want to thank the entire HCM community for getting involved. They've really shown what they can do when they want to. Now we just need you to do your homework and finish that up. It gets a little hard sometimes to follow up on everything in your normal course of life, but this is the part that really matters, is following up. So please respond to your emails. Please continue to participate. And we're going to take some questions now. If anybody has any, you've all been quiet here watching. So I'm going to put up a little call for Q&A. I do have some Q and see, I got to be producer and on air at the same time here. Send questions. So if you have any questions, now's the time to put them out. So my question is about timelines. So we know we're in the midst of, we've hit our goals, and some people have been in already for a few years. When do we look like we're going to get some data that we can start to work with out of the study? Dr. Day, why don't you start that one?
Yeah, so I believe the last patients were enrolled in March. Is that correct?
Yes, mid-February, by the time we had people getting in their questionnaires at baseline.
So we wanted a minimum of 2-year follow-up. So it will be February of 2021. When all the patients will have completed the study. And then, of course, it takes some time to put the data together and to make sure everything's complete and then to do the analysis. So sometime in the year of 2021, we should have all the results. But we are going to have the baseline data cleaned and ready for publication sooner than that. So hopefully sometime in this calendar year. That we would have some of the baseline data available so that we would know how much people are exercising. Some of the data that Dr. Lampert showed, in addition to other more details about the individuals who are enrolled in the study.
Now, I have another question, which I kind of know the answer to, but what if somebody's done with the study, but the study's still going on and they still want to participate? Is there an extension?
So yes, thanks for asking, Lisa. We got some great news earlier this year as well from the NIH that we were allowed to create an extended follow-up part of the study. It's not required, but as people are finishing the first phase of the study, the primary study, we will ask you if you'd like to go on and be in that. We're calling it XT, the extended follow-up as well. So that's very exciting, and we're hoping people will want to do the long term, although it's not required.
Okay. So we have a very quiet crew today, not a lot of questions, not a lot of comments even, unusual for Facebook on any level. But we don't have much yet. So if you do have a question, now would be the time to post it. If you have an experience with the study that you'd like to share, you can post that below as well. We'll be on here for another minute or so you have time to type. So is there anything that we have a comment. Hold on, let's see. So Steve has a question. Will we be making recommendations? No. Will we be making recommendations to Medicare about cardiac rehab involvement? So this is One, do you want to take that as to?
I would say this study is not looking directly at cardiac rehab, but I think the importance of cardiac rehab for people with all kinds of cardiomyopathies is being increasingly recognized. And I think that we're looking at benefits of exercise overall. And I think one of the potential outcomes might be that if we're seeing benefits of exercise, that would certainly address that question, although somewhat indirectly.
I think it is an important question, but a little off target to the LIVE-HCM study per se. I know many patients with HCM would love to be able to exercise with supervision to know the limits of their own heart, but it is not reimbursed by Medicaid right now or Medicare right now, because we really don't have a lot of data to say it's helpful. I think it just intuitively makes sense if we exercise in a safe environment and we know our limits, that we'll be more likely to continue with a healthier lifestyle. But we do need to get the payers on board with understanding why we need maybe not a full, 36 sessions, but maybe we need 5 or 10 sessions to let us know what heart rates are safe for us. But that's to the global HCM community for us to do the research. Dr. Day?
Another option is to do exercise consultation. Even just doing a one-time exercise consultation with an exercise physiologist, which may or may not be covered, but it is not a very expensive. Even if you had to pay it out of pocket, it's generally, it's under $100 per hour. And at least you could get some guidelines. And this is how what we incorporated into the RESET-HCM study that we published a couple of years ago, where we did a randomized controlled trial of exercise training versus usual activity in patients with HCM. And in 136 patients that were in the study, everybody received an exercise consultation for an hour. If they were in the exercise training arm, it was at the beginning. If they were in the usual activity arm, it was at the end. And people find that very useful. And we use their baseline stress test to guide the parameters that we recommended for exercise testing. So I think even though rehab right now is not covered, for extended, visits, I think that it would be affordable for most people to do a one-time exercise consultation to get some guidelines. That's
an excellent point. We do have a question from Doug. It's actually a two-part question. So the first part of his question is, I've given up long-distance cycling, and I'm curious on your thoughts on participation in endurance sports.
So I think that the risk and benefits of endurance sports is exactly one of the questions that we're hoping this study will answer. We gave a little bit of information just about, 40% of the people are exercising pretty vigorously. And when Dr. Day was talking about that we're hoping to put out some information, hopefully even later this year, about the baseline data, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about how many of those are doing things like endurance cycling. We won't have the safety data for a couple years, but we will at least have a sense of what people are doing fairly soon.
Okay. I think one way that we approach this question now in our practices is using what we call a shared decision-making model, where we present all the data and the uncertainties and is there potential risk, and weighing the risk and benefit. And it really is an individualized decision-making process. And I certainly have many patients in my practice who are doing long-distance cycling, running, or other types of either endurance or more high-intensity sports. And so, I think there's, again, uncertainty around it, but increasingly we're using a shared decision-making model to work with patients to see what they're, most comfortable with.
I just said, of course, it's a very individualized decision because everybody's heart is a little bit different. And so what works and how well different things work is going to differ for every person. So it's important to really have that conversation with your doctor.
Right. So Doug's follow-up question is exactly in this space. Mm-hmm. Have you seen cases where endurance sports may have contributed to HCM? And I'm not quite sure how you would define contributed, but.
So I think what you're asking is whether it could either trigger HCM to develop in somebody that may have a predisposition, or whether it could exacerbate the condition itself. And this is another area of uncertainty. We don't have any evidence that endurance sports or sports of any kind increases the disease severity or accelerates any of the sort of features or increases adverse events in patients with HCM. But there are certain subtypes that have emerged that are more common in athletes than others. For example, the apical subtype, where the hypertrophy is confined to the apex or tip of the heart, is much more commonly seen in athletes than in non-athletes. So it is possible that there may be some remodeling that kind of overlaps between what happens from endurance sports, generally tend to think of as physiologic, and sort of what could cross over into something more, like a disease, like sort of defines it as a disease per se, or HCM. So I think it's a great question, something we're investigating. We may get some insights from the LIVE study, as well as other studies that are ongoing. But right now we are not aware that endurance sports exacerbates the condition.
Just to be a typical Lisa question, if you will, isn't it also possible that the apical HCMs are more likely to do more exercise because they feel a little bit better than your typical obstructed HCM?
Yeah, no, that's possible, right? So it's just an association. So we don't have a cause and effect at all. So it's possible that the apicals don't, because they don't get obstruction or they have sort of less hypertrophy, that they feel better. And it's the other possibility is that they come to attention because their EKGs tend to be much more abnormal than other HCM subtypes, and athletes may be getting screened more often, or their doctors may do more of a cardiac, for the master's level athletes may do, more extensive cardiac testing. So there are a number of different possibilities why that association exists.
So, and one other question here is kind of on target. Sorry I came late to the conversation. Do you suggest letting someone know that you are an HCM patient when you go to the gym? I'm always apprehensive that should something happen, I have my bracelet and it's information in my wallet, but nobody would understand what to do. So should they have some type of, bracelet, t-shirt on that says, I have HCM, if I fall down, take me to the emergency room? What should they do?
Rachel, do you want to?
I think it's important that people who would be treating you would know about HCM. I'm not sure whether letting people know at the gym is going to necessarily do more than make people nervous at the gym. I'm not sure. Sharlene, what do you think about that?
I guess I usually do. I think it's important to know what would happen in the case of an emergency. And I tell all people this. You should know if your gym has an AED, if they have an emergency action plan, and if the AED is charged, who take it, where it's stored, all those types of things. And I generally would say, for people that participate in team sports, that everybody that they, on the team doctors, the coaches, and so forth would know. And if they're on a team with a bunch of, peers, that their peers would know. And I think it's really just an increased awareness that if they pass out, that it's not just because they were dehydrated. Like, there should be some level of, level of concern that may be higher than it is for somebody else who doesn't have a cardiac condition. So generally, I do think that people, around you or who would be treating in the case of emergency should know. I don't know if they need to know all the details about your heart condition, but just that you have one, whether you have an ICD or not, and, just to be aware.
And never exercise alone with HCM.
Yes, I generally do tell people that. Although, again, that's part of the shared decision-making discussion, because some people who exercise, they do long-distance cycling, and it's not practical for them to always be with somebody, and they just have to make that decision. But generally, I do believe that it's a good practice to exercise around other people, even if you have a defibrillator.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, we seem to have slowed down on the questions. This is the last call for questions in the live broadcast. It is now 4:27 p.m. on the 17th of July. So if you're watching this live, you can ask a question now. If you're watching it later, you can post and we'll reply in time when we have an opportunity to do so. Any parting thoughts, Dr. Day?
No, just if you're in the study, please follow up. We really want to complete the complete data for every single patient, because that makes the study so much more powerful and meaningful.
Absolutely. Dr. Lampert and crew, any follow-up comments?
I think we'd all just like, again, to say thank you so much to those people who are participating. We really appreciate it, and together we're really looking forward to getting the answers.
Fantastic. Well, we have an amazing team here for Team LIVE-HCM, and I want to thank the clinicians, the coordinators, the patients, everybody for participating. Please continue to do your surveys. Please stay in the game. We need you to get to the finish line. You did the hard part. You did all the paperwork to get your medical records in, and you did the intake survey. Now just do the up-to-date surveys when they send them to you. They're nice people. You just met them all. They get sad and not be able to do their job. Let them do their job. So thank you all so much for your participation, and thank you, doctors, for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa, as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.